Hello, I am back. I'm gonna continue. So where do I start? Alright, so last time I got my gamepad working, kind of. Well, I got it at least being read by the computer, which is fine. So I don't think I really need to check all of this anymore. But so I want to continue making the gamepad work better with all the buttons and everything. But before I do that, I want to kind of clean this up a little bit. I want to be able to just call one function, pass in all the things I want to render as text, and then have that work. So I'm going to do that real quick. Well, I say real quick. I'm going to do that first, and then once I get that working, I'll continue with the gamepad. So what I need to do, so in my utilities file, I have this function here that takes in a variable amount of arguments that will build up a debug string. So I think what I would want to do is create a similar function here that will pass that text here into my render text function once it's already built it up with all the variable arguments. And then it'll be a lot easier to render variables as text, so I can debug and things like that. So what I'm going to do is make a static void. I'm just going to call it debug print. So it's like printing, like a printf kind of. And then it's going to take a, I think constant. No, I think just a regular S8 pointer would be fine for the text, and then the variable arguments. And so to make this work, because I already did all the work here in this create debug string function, so I want to have this function just use, get rid of that, just use this function. But I don't think I can just call that function by passing in this ... I think I have to do a little bit of work to make this happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this around a little bit to take what is that, a VA list instead of variable arguments. And then I'm going to basically leave it up to this function to create that VA list and then just pass it in. So let me put this here. And then I also want to make one of these in here as well. And since I called it text, let's call it text. And then, so it's going to basically do everything the exact same way, and I don't need to do this anymore here. But I'm going to do that here. Our pointer. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know why that's RPTR, undeclared identifier. Oh, because I'm forgetting semicolon. Okay, so now I can't call create debug string here because it doesn't work the same way anymore. So I'm just going to instead put print, not printf, debug print. And then so I'm going to pass in the same arguments. And then now I don't have to make a buffer. I'm going to have this function just have its own buffer. Yeah, here. Okay, and so it's then going to call create debug string by passing in the buffer, passing in the text, and then passing in now the VA list. And then this, wait a minute. I don't know why I just thought of this, but yeah, because I was getting some bugs yesterday with the text, and I was like, it's kind of shrugging it off, but I think I might know why. I think, yeah, I'm not terminating this buffer here. So after the while loop, before I end the function, I want to actually take the last character of this buffer and put that there. I don't actually remember what bugs I was getting, but hopefully that'll prevent me from getting more. What's going on now? VA list illegal use of this argument or this type as an expression. That's in 370. What are you talking about? Oh, I think I'm passing in the wrong thing. I want to pass an arg pointer, not a VA list. That would make sense. And then buff is an undeclared identifier where oh yeah, I don't need to pass in buff. Okay. So that is eventually going to render just like that without having to do any of that extra buffer creation. But of course it's not working because I got to make it work. So essentially what I'm going to do is use this function to call this function. And I'm going to programmatically figure out what the X position, the Y position, the scale, and the color will all be the same because it's just debug text on the screen. I don't really care to customize the format. So what I'm going to do is now come here and make a couple of variables to keep track of where things are. So I'll just put it here. This is all going to get cleaned up at some point. So I need F32. So I'll call this debug printer X. And then static F32 debug printer Y, static F32 debug printer. So I need a Y position where the text is going to go. And I don't really need an X position. Oh yeah, I guess I do. It's better to put it in a variable than hard code it. But I don't really need, sorry, what am I trying to say? So the Y position is going to be where the text is rendered on the screen vertically, and then each time it's just going to start at the top, and then every time I render a line it's going to go down. But then I need to know where to go back to when I reset everything. So I'm going to call this debug printer start Y. And then I should probably spell static correctly if I want things to work. So the X position, the Y position. I'm going to just define a couple things, or just one thing. Actually, so yeah, this is going to be, well, no, because that's going to be dependent on the size of my window. So yeah, I'm going to leave that as a non-constant, but I'm going to define a, let's see, I'm going to do it here. Say debug print size. And I don't know, I'm going to try 2 and then maybe adjust it from there. So yeah, so now when I build my text renderer, I should probably initialize that stuff. So I'll do that down here. So the debug print start Y is going to be, I don't know. So it's going to be basically the window height minus, let's say it's the debug print size times, what is this, 2 times, I don't know, 15. Let me make another define for that. Just I'm not hard coding a 15 there. So debug print size, let's say define debug print Y I'll call this y start offset. I don't need to. Oh, no. I'm just gonna, okay. I could always do that later. I'm gonna just keep doing this. So then my debug printer x, let's just start that at 25. And then the debug printer y is equal to the debug printer start y. All right, so then after every frame, after I'm rendering all my text, all my debug prints, then I'm going to make sure I set the debug printer y back to the debug printer start y. Kind of like a vertical carriage return. All right, so now when I'm doing my debug print, so I got the string created here in this buffer, so now I'm just going to pass that buffer to the render text function that I made. So I'm going to pass in the buffer, I'm going to pass in the x position, which is just my debug printer x, and then the y position is my debug printer y. The scale is my debug print size, and then the color is just for now always going to be black. And then I'm going to, let's make one more define here. Define debug print y movement, sure. Let's call that 25. Oops, there we go. All right, so then I'm going to take this debug printer y and increase it by, or no, decrease it by debug print y movement. All right, let's see if that works. Yeah. Okay, so now if I call debug print many times, it should just all go in order. Oh, awesome. I'm liking that. And I don't see those bugs that I was thinking about last time, so I think that adding the null terminator character to the buffer fixed that. Cool. All right, so let's get rid of this. And okay, so yeah, I'm going to continue trying to get my gamepad to work fully. So I would like to abstract this out a little bit. So I'm going to make a struct here. Let's see, let's put it here below everything. I'll just call it gamepad. And so what do I need for a gamepad? I think really all I need is this state and then the index. Because yeah, that's what I need to get the input, or to get the state of that controller. So let me copy this here. Oops. Put that in here, and then let's call it state. And then, yeah, since it's part of the gamepad struct, I can just call it index. And then let's make a global static gamepad. I'm going to call this gamepad1, so I can add a gamepad2 if ever I need to. So let's get rid of that and that. And then we'll say this is, yeah, that's still going to be I, but then this is gamepad1 dot state, and then this would be gamepad1 dot index, and then I don't need this else at all. Okay, so that should set up my gamepad, and then down here, so yeah, this is again going to be actually gamepad1 dot index. This will be gamepad1 dot state. And I'm going to try this. I don't want to use this DW result here. I'm going to, yeah, let's get rid of that. And I'm just going to pass this function directly here inside the if statement. I don't know if that improves anything. It just makes the code at least a little cleaner in my brain. Okay, so nothing should change except for these errors that I got. Why? 644. Oh yeah. So that is going to be gamepad1.state.gamepad. Just copy all that. Oops. $722. Oh yeah, where I'm printing it. Oh no. Yeah, here also. There we go. That should get rid of all the errors. All right, so everything's still working. So what else can I do? Yeah, so let me do this here. All right, I'm going to get rid of these. And because really I want the normalized value. I don't know if I'm ever going to use like the full numerical value for that. If that makes any sense, which I doubt. So I'm going to come back here. What was it? Was it under X input? Yeah, getting started with X input. So they're talking about these dead zones, and they say that you should do all this like normalizing by getting the square root of all that. And I don't know, it just seems like a bit much to me. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to do it my own way, and it might not be as efficient as almighty Windows is suggesting, but at least it'll make more sense in my brain, and then if I need to optimize it again later, I can do that. So let me see, how do I, okay, so let's, okay, so I'll worry about the buttons later. I'm gonna just, okay, I'm gonna try to get all the sticks and the triggers to work, the directional axes and the triggers to get my camera moving around. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make some floats here. That's, I'm gonna say left stick normal, wait, left stick X normal. I'm gonna say normalized. So on a scale of, wait, I guess it's not technically normalized. It's, I don't know, what do you call it when you're taking like a big big range of numbers and then putting it in a range of 0 to 1. I guess, well, it's not even 0 to 1, it's -1 to 1. I'm just gonna keep it as left stick X and left stick Y for now. Likewise for the right stick, so F32, right stick X and F32. Jeez. Yeah, so then we got F32 left trigger and F32 right trigger. So every time I'm updating the game state, I mean the gamepad state, I want to calculate the normal for these. Let me take a look here. what's this have? So this has this DW packet number, which is the state packet number, indicates whether there have been any changes to the state of the controller. Okay, so I can, presumably I can use this to kind of optimize it and say, like, if this isn't different, then don't bother updating anything. Yeah, let's try that. I mean, let's try this. Let's debug print something. Debug print. Let's call, what is this? I'll just call this packet number. Percent, what type is it? A D word? What's a D word? Upper 32 bits, lower 38. Oh, 64 bit. Okay. So, oops. So presumably signs. Well, that's it. Well, anyway, I'm just gonna. I don't have 64-bit printing yet, so let's just print it as an integer, and then I'm gonna put my gamepad one dot state dot dw packet number. Oh, 727. Yeah, I don't need you anymore. Okay, so it's always the same. Okay, yeah, so every time I press a button, it changes. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna keep track of that. So let's go here to my gamepad, and I'll call this int 64, no, sign 64, last packet. And then, so yeah, every time here, so if it's equal to success, so before I check if it's a success, I think I want to do if gamepad1 dot, oh wait, no, but the updating of this is what changes that state, I presume. Because yeah, if I, oops, let me put that back. Let me comment this out here. Put this down here. I don't think it's going to change. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm going to do this if that's true, and the gamepad one state.dw packet number does not equal gamepad one dot last packet, then I can go ahead and do all this updating. So I don't need to print that anymore. And let's put this down here. Okay, so now I need to calculate what these are going to be. So let's go back here. Let's look at what this is. So every gamepad, or every X input state has a gamepad. And the gamepad, okay, so here's where I get the buttons and the triggers and everything. Okay, so this is a short from, okay. Okay, so that's the maximum value can be, that's the minimum value can be. Okay, and the triggers are 0 to 255, so just a byte. All right, so I'm gonna hard code these in here. Wait, how am I going? This way. So let's do this here. Define, I'll say gamepad stick max. Well, it's the same regardless of whether it's the X or Y axis, right? So let's just say Gamepad stick max is that. Just copy all this. So then the minimum is that, and then I want the, this will be the trigger max. And then since the minimum is 0, I don't really need to define that. Okay, so then presumably, so here I can calculate what those normals are. So yeah, gamepad left stick x. So okay, so the gamepad 1 dot left stick x. So to normalize it would be whatever it currently is divided by the max, right? Yeah. Yeah. So how do I get the so gamepad 1 dot gamepad dot s thumb lx. Okay. Gamepad 1 dot no state dot gamepad dot s thumb lx. Okay, and then divided by gamepad stick max. And that is a short, so I want to cast that. Otherwise, I'll probably just get 0 the whole time. All right, so let's try doing this for the Y. And then the right stick. Okay, so let's try printing this stuff out and see. So I'll say left stick x %f. I don't need to put a comma. Left stick, and let's just get rid of space too. So left stick y. Left stick, no, right stick x %f, and then right stick y %f. And then I'm gonna basically put all this in here. All right, how's that working out? -1 to +1, -1 to +1, right stick -1, +1, -1, +1. And I'm still getting some bugs here in my text renderer. Why is it giving me a slash? Okay, but that's cool. I'm just glad that's working. And then so the triggers should work the same way. So gamepad 1 dot left trigger is equal to a float version of gamepad 1 state dot gamepad dot b left trigger divided by the gamepad trigger max. And then do the same for the right trigger. Yeah, let's do a whole new one. All right, so left trigger, %f, right trigger, %f. Yeah, seems to be working to me. I'm happy with that. And yeah, I still got those dead zones. Well, maybe the comma is because of the dead zone, or the slash. Go somewhere where I can see. I don't know. We'll mess with that later. So what do I want to do now? All right, so I want to get the camera moving with this stuff, but I also want to go ahead and get the buttons working too. So yeah, I'm going to do the buttons. And I think I'm going to do it similar to how I'm doing the key inputs here. Although I'll maybe set myself up for some heavy optimization later. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I'm going to do it this way anyway. So I'm going to make a Boolean array, call it buttons, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. So there's 14 buttons, but I'm going to make it 16 just because it's a power of 2. And that way, if they ever come out with new controllers with 2 extra buttons, I can easily update it. So how do I actually read the buttons on this thing? So I have this word here, which a D word is a 64-bit. So I'm going to assume a word is just a 32-bit integer. Now I'm going to look it up. It's not easy to find. Okay, I'm going to say, again, assume it's 32 bits. And so, let's see, so W buttons bit mask of the device digital buttons as follows. A set bit indicates that the corresponding button is pressed. Okay, so I just have to AND it with one of these to tell if that button is down. And so, yeah. Okay, so then since this is an array, I want the indices to be in order. So I'm going to just define every button on here. There's only 14 of them. Let's do it here. So define gamepad A as 0. And I need B, X, Y, left trigger, right trigger, L3, R3, D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, D-pad right, the start button, and the select button. All right, so that's B, that's X, that's Y, that's left button, that's right button, that's L3. And L3, I don't know if you call it the same thing. I call L3 and R3 these little sticks when you press them down, and then this is LB, RB, because that's how it's labeled. Oops. R3. So then this is D up, D down, D left, D right, and then start and back. Yeah. Okay, so again, I know this is not the best way to do that, but I'm only running this code if any button is actually getting pressed. So if one button's getting pressed, I'm just going to update the state for everything. So yeah, I'm going to say gamepad 1.buttons gamepad A. So the button at A is equal to the W buttons ANDed with X input gamepad A. So my mind went blank. So gamepad 1 dot state dot gamepad dot W buttons and X input, what do they call it? Gamepad A. There we go. All right, so before I waste all my time typing 13 more things like that, I'm gonna just go ahead and print what this one is. So let's just say A, and that's going to be, I'll just print it as an integer. Hey, it's working. Press the A, it turns to 1. Let go, turns to 0. It reminds me, I do want to make a Boolean, take in a B and then print out true or false, but I'll do that later. Okay, so let's do this for the rest of them. So A, B, X, Y, left button, right button, L3, R3, up, down, left, right. What are the other ones? Oh, start and back. Okay. B, X, Y, left button, right button, L3, R3, D up, D down, D left, D right, and then start and back. So this is also B, X, Y. For left button, I guess they call it left shoulder. Right shoulder. Then what do they call? Wait. Oh, I messed up. All right, so that's Y. That should be left shoulder. That should be right shoulder. Then L3, what do they call L3? Left thumb and right thumb, okay. And right thumb, and then what do they call the D-pad stuff? So gamepad, D-pad left and all that. So D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, D-pad right. Okay, and for the start and back, just start and back. Okie dokie. So I got A, B, %I, X, Y, and then we got left button, right button, L3, R3, And then the D-pad. So we'll just say D up, D down, D left, D right. Oops. Okay, and one more. So then we also need the start and back. All right, let's see if all of that hard work is going to pay off. All right, so I got my left stick, right stick, my left trigger, right trigger, A, B, X, Y, left button, right button, L3, R3, D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, D-pad right, start and back. Oh my goodness, we got a working gamepad. This is awesome possum. So now let's make the D-pad actually move the camera. And you know what? I should be doing this way sooner. Wait, should I? Yeah. I should be doing this here. I guess not way sooner, just up here. Yeah, so I should do it before I update the camera view and all that stuff. So that's a big function, or a big if statement. Okay, so let's do this now. So let me get the camera looking left and right with the gamepad. So I know this, okay, so I'm just gonna do a bunch of if statements. Not trying to make it as optimal as possible right now, just trying to get it to work. So I'm gonna just check if the gamepad 1 dot left stick X is greater than, so here's where I'm gonna control the dead zone. So I'm gonna just pick some arbitrary number here, 0.01. So if it's greater than that, or left stick X is less than negative 0.01, then what I want to do is rotate my camera's orientation by the camera up vector, and I want to rotate it delta time times the camera's rotate speed times the gamepad's left, so gamepad 1's dot left stick X. All right, how is this gonna work, if at all? Oh, see, already that's not a good dead zone, but I can tell it's working. So yeah, let's go left and right. But yeah, so now I'm leaving it and it's panning to the left. So maybe this number is not good enough. So let's try a little bit of a higher threshold here. Okay, seems better. All right, cool. So let's do the same for up and down. Is it? I don't remember. Is it normally the left stick does the movement and the right stick does the angle, or? I don't know. Yeah, I might change this to right stick. For some reason that just felt wrong when I was trying that earlier. Right stick X. And then, so this would also be right stick. Yeah, okay. So let's do the same for the y-axis. Oops. Yeah, that should be all I need to change, I think. Or not. So right stick Y is greater than that, or right stick Y is right is less than that. Oh, yeah, I want to change it around the camera's right vector. There we go. So it's down for up for down. Oh, and I saw a little bit of drift there. So yeah, I can reverse that. Well, I don't know. I'll do that later. But yeah, so I could always easily negate it to invert that direction. So yeah, so I think that's. Let me just double check. Okay, so I could look all around. That's cool. So now let's try to move forward and back and all around that way. So if the gamepad ones dot left stick X, I should just copy all of this stuff here. Oh, just a condition. And change it to left stick X. So I basically want to do the same thing as if I'm pressing the A and D key here. So let's just copy that. So I'll move the camera positions by the camera's right vector times delta time times the camera's move speed, and then I also need to multiply it by this. It's working, it's backwards. So I could just do minus equals. There we go. And I could do the same for the Y. This is going to be the camera's up vector, left stick Y. Oh no, sorry, not the up vector, it's the forward vector. There we go. And I am flying through a sea of monkeys with a gamepad. All right, so I also want to rotate the camera, whatever, that way, and then also move it up and down. So let's do 2 more. So if gamepad, so I'm going to use the triggers to, what is that? That's not yaw is that way, pitch, roll. I'm going to roll the camera. So if the left trigger is also greater than 0.5, 0.05. So, and since the minimum is 0, it's, you know, it's either up or down. So I'm going to then actually let's move this back up here. Let's do put all the rotates together and copy that. So I'm going to put left trigger there, and then this is going to be the camera's forward vector. And let's just go for gold and do the right trigger right now. Right trigger, and I think that's going to be negative that. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to use the RB and LB to go up and down. So RB will go up, LB will go down. So this one's going to be a little different. So if gamepad1.buttons at the location of gamepad LB, then basically it's the exact same thing as if I'm pressing the R key. So I should be able to just paste that in there and then change the next one accordingly. So that'll be right button, and then instead of subtracting, I want to add. Oh, I got it backwards. All right, that looks like it is working. So I can go up, I can go down, I can roll right, I can roll left, I can go forward, I can go back, I can go left, I can go right. I can look down, I can look up, I can look to the left, I can look to the right. This is cool. All right, so eventually I want to optimize it so that it's not checking for every input state all at once. I'm gonna do like some games where they can automatically detect if you suddenly pick up a controller and start pressing buttons. It's gonna be like, oh, I'm switching to gamepad input, and then if you just start moving the mouse, it's like, oh, I'm switching to mouse and keyboard. But that's gonna be a different time. Let's see. I'm gonna do one more thing and then probably wrap it up for the day. I want to add a Boolean printing thing here to my create debug string, so I can print true or false if I want. And that's just for aesthetic reasons. I don't really need it to do that. I'm just fine with a 0 or 1, really. So yeah, let's see. How do I do this? So I'm not going to need a buffer. I don't need a while loop either. So I'm just going to basically hard code in there true or false. So yeah, this would be a int 32 or assigned 32. And then I'm just going to do a check that says if it's positive or negative, or no, if it's true or false. So if v else. All right, so if that's true, then I'm just going to add the letters T, R, U, and E. And then if it's false, I'm going to add those letters. All right, it compiles. So let's test this real quick. All right, so let's just test it with A, B, X, and Y. Oops. Oh yeah, false, true. Let's see. Yeah, so false. So A is false. A is now true. B is false. Whoops. B is now true. X is true. False. True. False. Oh yeah, it's working. Still getting some weird bugs on my float render. Like, why is it? It's like somehow the negative or the decimal point is like becoming negative and then rendering characters that are below the 0. I'm gonna look into that. All right, so I'm so sick of doing this font stuff. All right, so what's my to-do list got to offer here? So make rendering text. So that is done. Render text. I got one more thing. Fix bug on negative floats. Gamepad inputs. I'm going to call that done for now, at least. I'm going to add a to-do to optimize input. Still got to improve the lighting. Still got to replace the math string functions. Still got to do animated meshes. That's going to take a while. And then, yeah, that's more of a later thing. All right, yeah, I'm happy with what I did tonight. I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me quickly save everything to the Git machine. Git commit. More text rendering cleanup and gamepad input formalized. Git push. All right. Thank you, everybody. I will hope to see you next time. Bye.